Hey, it's Scott. Welcome back to Spin Magazine's Lip Service. My next guest is one of the most important singers out of New York in the last 25 years and one of the most important rock bands, if not the most important rock band out of New York, The Strokes and the Voidz. He is Julian Casablancas. Truth is, Julian doesn't do a lot of interviews. Super excited to have him here. We're going to get into everything from the new Voidz album to The Strokes to his upbringing to many, many more things. I'm excited to chop it up in a minute with Julian Casablancas. Welcoming the one and only Julian Casablancas. Thanks so much for being here, by the way. I know you don't do a ton of these things, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. You have a fantastic new record coming out about the time when this is released, so like all before you. We have a ton of mutual friends. I was just telling you, between Matt Pinfield, your drummer Alex, Albert, and I are good friends. We have like a ton, it's like 1 degree of Julian or me, I don't know, but it's great. So, and I feel like it's a weird thing, Julian, but I've actually, like, I was at Lucian for your birthday a couple years ago, sitting next to you. You didn't know me. Remember you had your birthday there? You like, I remember they sang Happy Birthday to you.
I was there alone for my birthday.
I remember, because I was like, I almost wanted to be like, I should join you, but I didn't. You would have been like, I'm Albert's friend, but you would have been like, well, why are you joining me? And then I feel like years ago we sat next to each other with your dad. I was saying at Sushi Seki uptown, but and in a weird, another 1 degree of separation, I was partners with your dad.
Oh, wait, you were there?
I was at Sushi Seki next to you and your dad years ago, and I had a relationship with your dad for years. We were friends, and his company he started was my business partner when I started my company for many years. So it's this weird thing, you know?
Wow, that's
I'm
crazy.
like the Kevin Bacon of, or something, whatever it is.
You kind of have a Kevin Bacon vibe.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I was trying to get him to, I guess, like sushi. We were at, I think.
Sushi Seki, which is my favorite sushi place in the whole world.
Well, he was at like Sloan Kettering, what's the second word?
Kettering, I think.
Kettering, yeah.
That was around the time when
I
think that was at the, right? That was like, when, how long ago was
Yeah,
that?
I remember I took him there, and that's funny that you were there.
Yeah, I don't like to interrupt people. I mean, I never go up to people unless I'm like properly introduced, and I knew your dad, but I don't like to just, it's funny, this weekend I was at a table next to Paul McCartney.
I'm sure he would have loved it.
Well, we knew each other, but it's funny, we had we had a great relationship for a couple of years, but he was a great guy. But it's funny, this weekend somebody was asking me what I did, and I was at a table next to Paul McCartney, but I didn't really want to talk to him because if you approach Paul McCartney cold, it's a bit weird, and he was with his family. Do you ever meet people now and get impressed, or at this point in your life that doesn't really happen?
Yeah, no, sure. I still don't know how to approach people that I look up to. It's kind of impossible. You need like an excuse or a reason, or you can't just, hey, sorry, I hate to do this.
Who was like the last person that you really wanted to speak to that you were like, because I'm nervous about talking to half the people I talk to, even though we're friends half the time, but.
I mean, I always felt uncomfortable talking to like Eddie Vedder and stuff, but now I think I've gotten past that. By then I had kind of learned my lesson, and I really tried to play it cool and acting like I was not fazed at all. Like I could care less, but.
Because early on you had all these, you had like Tom York coming to your shows and Liam Gallagher, right? I remember back in the day with Don Hills and all those clubs.
Those guys I had weirder interactions with.
You did? Bad interactions or good interactions?
Just, I don't know, British interactions.
Yeah. They're funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone told me that they're actually very close now, and the whole thing is for the press. It's like they go into each other's houses through the back door because there's going to be
Tom York and Liam Gallagher?
No, Liam and Noel.
Oh.
Because there's going to be
gotcha.
At some point there's going to be this like Oasis reunion. Everyone's big surprise, but they've always been friendly. I don't know, but I love Oasis.
That's cool.
But there's so much to get into. Fantastic new record, as I said. Congratulations on it. It's going to hit, I think, September 20th it comes out.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Are you excited about this record, your third record?
I am, yeah. I mean, you listen to it a whole hell of a lot, and we've been working on it for a long time. So, I was definitely just for a while just trying not to think about it and just kind of happy that it would be out. But I just heard the final the other day, and I was pretty excited and moved and honored to be a part of it.
It's such a great record. It's also so eclectic. It feels like you guys were listening to all kinds of stuff. I feel like, in a way, because I kind of grew up. I'm an 80s kid, and I was in this band that was like Guns N' Roses adjacent back in the day. But I feel like that era, aside from the hair metal, is underappreciated. And there's so much great music that happened in the 80s.
80s is a pretty eclectic era.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was maybe, in some ways, it was kind of like the apex of melodies, all these different, from like new wave to, I could easily,
Diverge.
yeah, I could go on and on about 80s melody, or just the history of vocal melodies, but
we should talk about that, because it's interesting. Even if you listen to the drum sounds on the record, there's like 808 sounds, and it feels like there's like Lindrum sounds, yet mixed with this like metal guitar and, Prophecy of the Dragon. I mean, there's this eclectic mix. So I feel like maybe you were listening to a lot of 80s at the time.
No, but it's funny. I was writing someone in the band and saying it almost sounded like you asked AI to kind of generate a musical journey from like 1974 to now, with an eye to the future or something. Like post, like analog. I don't know. I mean, that's been our thing, I think, since the beginning, is trying to kind of just assimilate all kinds of genres that are potentially considered underground in different parts of the world, but that we all, covet as kind of, it's like our personal mainstream.
Yeah. Feels like you're super passionate about this group, which I love. And when you met Beardo and Alex, who I love, by the way, we were chatting about them, did you know instantly there was that kinetic connection with them where you're just like, you didn't have, nobody auditioned for the band, it just kind of happened?
Kind of. I mean, you mentioned Alex, that's probably the one person that did.
Did you audition?
Technically, well, because I mean, because it was like doing the solo live thing, and it was the most memorable of all of the. I think I only auditioned maybe 3 different drummers, but
who else did you audition?
I can't remember their names, but they were very good professional dudes, and they had this song that they had heard like 11th Dimension or something. And they came in, they played it, and it was like, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. And then Alex came, and he had just came off the airplane. I was like, I think he's got like mascara on. I couldn't tell. Like, he came from Australia, so I just been on like a plane for like 20 hours. And I just kind of sang him the beat, and he played it like perfectly, like better than I had even dreamed it, better than it sounded on the record. And we instantly kind of musically gelled. And then I think over the years have become super close. And he was maybe one of the most involved in a way towards like the home stretch of mixing and vocals, and he was it was like me and him and the producer for the last like, I don't know, almost like year or two, I think.
Is something like the drum sound, is that a pretty conscious effort to use like I said, something like the 808 sounds and the Lindrum, because it takes it away from being rock into this otherworldly, you mentioned like AI in a sense, right?
Well, it is him playing. I mean, that's Alex sounds like a cool 80s drum machine when he plays. Yeah. He can just do anything, like African stuff or, hip hop stuff or, rock, whatever. He's just such a insane drummer, as you know. And I think it's also just naturally how he sounds. Like when he just plays, he has triggers and reel. So when he just has his own setup, it already has this kind of mix of reel and samples. So I think it's just bringing what he does, as much to the spotlight as possible.
Were you listening to different things on this record that you normally listen to? Because as I said, there's like world references, world music references. Obviously, for me, it's like some of those songs, there's like a New Order. I hear references like Peter Hook in there. Yeah. So I feel like this record in particular throws back a little to what I feel is like an underappreciated era, aside from the hair metal, which I'm very much a part of. So I can't really, dog it too much, but because I love that kind of music still, I feel like if you listen to Prophecy of the Dragon, even the guitar in that song could be like a Megadeth riff, but yet it has this very modern approach to music. So were you listening to other things that you normally listen to, or were you because I feel like it's so eclectic? I
mean, I think anyone who writes music, it's, you're processing all of the things that you've listened to and loved. So, I mean, I've listened to all kinds of, stuff like that. Yeah, hair jazz maybe was the was that something
That's a new
we threw
genre.
around it? Yeah, I mean, there's something about hair. I mean, even like the video that I kind of directed for a song Curious, I think it was kind of like an ode to the hair metal vibe. And it was this, the only reason I directed it is because it's such a fine line between kind of honoring it and taking it actually weirdly serious and not like going caricature style.
Did you like any of those bands, or were those bands I mean, I know that's not when the band started initially with the Strokes, you guys were never about that, but did you personally like any of that music?
I mean, I love David Lee Roth. I feel like he kind of had a pretty big effect maybe on the beginning of that era.
Yeah. So he was on my show, and I lost control of the interview, and it was 2 hours of him. I don't know if I don't want to say he was on something, but if you've ever watched an interview with David Lee Roth, you ask him about whatever, Van Halen, he talks about turtles under a rainbow on acid. Yeah. I couldn't follow anything. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And literally after 2 hours, I was like, I think I asked 2 questions. But I agree with you. When I was growing up, he was the coolest rock star ever. Yeah. It's 70s going into kind of early 80s, mid 80s. But I guess my question is, did you appreciate any, the Guns N' Roses of the world and those kind of bands?
Yeah, I did really like Guns N' Roses. I mean, really, Slash is probably my favorite guitarist.
Amazing.
I still think of him, I think when I'm like working on guitar solos and stuff. I mean, there's other influences too, but
I think the element of danger is what I loved about that band that I thought that you always had. Even when I think about like that performance you did for $2 Bill, that was dangerous, right? I mean, in a sense, like you're in the audience, and bands don't do that anymore. I think that performance in particular was inspired by like that Elvis 1968 performance in a way.
Yeah, the comeback.
But yeah, do you feel like that's missing a little bit of music, that element of danger now?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of bands who kind of, go for it and perform in that kind of way still. I think it's definitely not really near the mainstream, but it's there. Even back in the day, I think, the Stooges were pretty underground.
Yeah. I was going to say, one of the best shows I've seen in the last 5 years was you guys and Iggy at the Celine show. I was at that show. Yeah. And as I mentioned, Albert's a friend of mine. And, so I was getting spit on by Iggy. I was standing in the front, and I love Iggy and I love the Stooges, but I don't really want him to spit on me. But and he's got his shirt off, and maybe, not the best time to see him with his shirt off now, but still, he's so fucking rock and roll. But you guys invited the crowd up on stage, and that's what I mean. Everybody was having such a great time, and you don't really see that anymore, right? People are like, wait, don't jump on stage. That's not,
Yeah.
But you just went for it, and that, one of the best shows I've seen literally in the last 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's what I mean when I talk about the element of danger. And I saw the Voidz. I forget the name of the venue. It was in LA. Reggie Watts was there. It was like a backyard event that you were doing.
I think weirdly, wasn't that also the Wiltern?
It wasn't the Wiltern. It was like the special event you were doing. Remember, like Reggie Watts I think he might have introduced you. Alex invited me, but it was a great show. And I feel like you have that element of danger, which is, I think, so important these days in rock and roll. But talk to me about making this record and the creative process that went into it. That's different than maybe the first 2 records.
Well, for this one, it was a weird journey because our producer for the first 2 records had this idea where he wanted to go into like a really professional studio, because we had always kind of done like makeshift recording hubs. And so we went to Vox in LA, which has all this kind of, it's not there anymore, but it has all this amazing gear and all this amazing recording equipment and all these amazing instruments. The collector, the guy who runs it, Woody, he has like one of the most amazing music gear collections around. And right before we went, I guess there was like some kind of scheduling miscommunication and he wasn't available. So
he wasn't available for you, which is strange. Like, what else was he doing? It's like he should be there for you.
I don't know. Probably some bullshit like John Legend or something.
Right.
But it was, we had, so I had met Justin Raisin and his brother, and
Justin worked with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Kim Gordon.
He's so he came in and filled in, and so we went to Vox with him, and so it was kind of new territory where we were trying to almost have like this big, still trying to kind of keep it cool, underground, attempting to be mainstream through accidental means, just being catchy or whatever. But yeah, we were in a kind of big studio environment, which was different for us, and I thought interesting to hear us, Flexorcist and Prophecy are probably like the two kind of obvious, kind of bigger sounding songs, I guess. So that's how we began, and then we had 8 songs to hand in for this deal we had. So we were working on these songs, and the pandemic happened, and then so everything kind of got lost and floated, and then I kind of figured out I like to record at Amir's in his garage at his home studio.
Better.
Our guitarist, and so we just kind of worked on it there to finish it and hone it in. But we had elements of this kind of mega studio recording and also just, time to make it sound like whatever we wanted. So yeah, I don't know. It's like a cyborg half kind of big album, like Nevermind vibes, and then
home studio
half, whatever, just kind of African demo recording vibes.
And how does that process differ from, like, I think with Rick you kind of own a room jamming in a sense, right, for the record before then? How does that process differ for you?
Yeah, that pretty different.
Because I always hear Rick kind of like, obviously he has his Rick magic, and he just sort of, I know him a little bit, but he'll just come in and say, I like this, I don't like that. He's not a musician, but whatever he says, it works.
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine his process is way different than you work with a guy like Justin or Ivan.
Yeah, I was thinking about his process just maybe even today while I was driving. It's almost like he has this limited energy and capacity for kind of hearing something and knowing if it's
good.
And this is just me guessing. I have no idea. I was actually thinking I would ask him, but since I won't, I'll just say it on a podcast. But essentially, when he listened to music or something, music that he loved or that moved him, that was popular, I don't know, he just kind of like
honed in on it.
He gets in a trance or something. Yeah. So I just think when he listens, it's either like, am I in the trance or not? And if he's not, then he'll kind of, analyze it or comment or seek something else. But
is he fairly hands-on though? And is he there with you every day, or does he just come in once a week? And
yeah, he does. But I guess it's like the limited part is just like limited amount of hours. But I don't think it's because he's physically tired. Yeah. I think it's just because it's like this kind of focus of when I can judge if something
has the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like you ask too many questions. What about this solo? What about this drum machine? And then he's like, I don't know anymore. And so he'll like escape out the side hatch. But no, yeah, he came most of the time, and
because I've had dinner with him and he pulls on the beard, I don't know if he still does that. I'm mad because him and Anthony Kiedis and Anthony have been good friends with for years, and I would just have dinner with the two of them, and he would do the beard pulling, and whatever he says is like literally coming out of like Gandhi's mouth. So you just like listen to it like it is what it is. But I imagine that process, like I said, is different. For this record, were you in a room jamming for some of the tracks?
We would get to the Voidz have this kind of issue where we generate too much. I stopped trying to actively songwrite myself because I couldn't. I would get frustrated that I would have so many songs and ideas and I could never get to it all. So
because everyone's bringing in ideas to the
everyone's bringing cool ideas, and I have like too many things to get to, and so it just gets frustrating. So it's almost like how do we limit or capture lightning in a bottle? Because if we play a song, we have the ability, I feel like, to copy something exactly. So we kind of like, once we have a magical demo idea, it's almost like copying that is the new realization. Because if we're just free and we just, like, let's say I show some chords and we're working on a thing, we can easily compile like 30 very decent versions, like a calypso version, a metal version,
hair jazz,
a hair jazz version, and just kind of, and then it's just too many options, and then it's just like it gets really confusing. So you want to kind of work on a song not too much, but then I think there's so many cool elements and magical moments that it's almost curating it for me and putting it all together is the harder part. And
I couldn't help but wonder when I listened to something like Prophecy of the Dragon, like, how did that song come together? Because as I said, it has this riff that, like, it's almost like a Megadeth riff, and then it has these electronic drums, and again, it's so eclectic, such a great track. But how does a song like that come together?
Well,
because that is hair jazz. That's
so Beardo had the riff, and the riff was over like a drum machine. I don't know if he intended it to be like hip hop drums or if that was just kind of the drum machine he was using, but it had that vibe already, almost like, the Run DMC, Aerosmith, whatever, like riff and drum machine energy, Walk This Way, but kind of more like metal version. And so then we worked on it, and then Alex played all these things, and then he had these kind of, and then we were honing in. He played some things that almost reminded me of like Salt and Pepper, whatever,
hip hop.
And so we kind of honed in the almost like, push it drum thing, which we had kind of done on Pyramid of Bones, but just kind of more honored the Beardo drum machine version. And then the chorus, we had done this part that reminded me of like Yes, the River Knows, like a kind of weird jazzy Doors song thing. So just kind of mixing that chorus with that verse, I guess, was the foundation of it. And then, we played it a bunch of times, and so different jams came out of it. Like the outro thing was, us just kind of messing around adjacently to it. And it's like, what the hell? This is like its own song. And it ended up being the outro. But yeah, just putting it together and kind of keeping the best energies of what we did. It's more like, it's always this kind of Frankenstein construction thing. But the illusion that you're trying to make is always that it was this casual one-take thing, because that's kind of what it was at the beginning. But then all these other cool ideas happen that we don't want to leave behind.
Well, even lyrically, it's about enlightenment, but it's a pretty interesting story about like the Buddha talking to the snake person, right? Like, how did you come up with that? It was like such a crazy story. And the visuals are brilliant, by the way. We'll get into that in a moment. But where did that come from, the enlightenment story?
Well, I don't know, Prophecy of the Dragon, the name kind of happened. And then so I was reading all these, we had been talking like art video wise about like, Buddhist hells and stuff and like that kind of imagery. But the idea, it was this Lotus Sutra, this text, this early, Buddhist adjacent text, I guess. I don't know, because it's so long ago. Obviously there's different, things that are written, and some are kind of taken as literature, and some are taken as, I don't know, literally is probably a strong word, but there was this story that I thought was kind of very matching, where it's this thing where Buddha had this kind of message for mankind that they weren't ready for, because it was so kind of mind-blowing and insane. So he kind of, he told this like snake king creature, and when humanity was ready, he would, share it, something akin to like, all people will become Buddhas and enlightened and stuff. So I think it also kind of had to do with Pyramid of Bones thing, where we had talked about this kind of, there was this kind of like enlightenment moment where, the dream of, possibly using the internet one day to kind of connect with humans on like a, simple way that like truth can be like downloaded into people's minds.
That's where we're going. That's exactly where life is going, by the way. I mean, I don't know how much you tune into the
well,
AI
hopefully it's
thing.
truth that gets downloaded and not
hopefully.
lies, which is the current course.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the idea.
And all the content, for this record is brilliant. I was, there's the girl that interviewed with the big 80s hair, which is great.
Heather.
And the Jim Morrison meets Satan video of Exorcist, right? Like, again, I just love the concepts behind a lot of this stuff because that video, again, is brilliant.
Thanks for noticing.
So, yeah, I mean, how do you come up with a concept like that? Are you like Jim Morrison and Satan are sitting in a room together?
Well, I've had, so the movie Legend, The Devil from Legend, I've been obsessed. Darkness, I guess, is technically the name of the character. Just one of the great characters ever. And I've been trying to push friends who do like sketch comedy, like, we need to do like The Devil from Legend. He needs like his own show or something because he's this kind of poetic, guy who also has like this shitty, stupid, bad temper. Like, it's just a very funny, he's like super jacked.
Yeah.
And
he's like cynical.
Yeah, it's just a really great character in Legend. It's the best part of Legend by far. And his lines are just so iconic. So I always thought, that there's also different sketch comedy ideas where people trying to sell their soul to the devil for success. And, there's like a Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I've seen some of them.
Devil Can't Write No Love Song or whatever, like a sketch he did with, I think, Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And so it was just that kind of idea. And I thought, Jim Morrison could be like his pal, hanging out with him. And I never thought it would be me or, I thought these would be professional comedians, but no one ever wanted to do the idea or never happened. So then one day we were just like, how about we just do it ourselves? Because if not, it's never going to get made. So that's kind of how.
I forget the girl's name who was interviewing you, but the whole time I couldn't figure out if it was like a forest or it's kind of, because it's kind of, she has literally this 80s. I mean, she looks like she's straight out of a Whitesnake video.
Yeah.
So I was
Heather Leather.
I was trying to figure out if that was like, but it's kind of funny. It's funny, but she's so deadpan with the hair and everything. So
well, yeah. I mean, we had some. We wanted to. I think we had.
Looks like 80s MTV again, referencing the 80s. Right?
Yeah,
so.
I think we wanted because we're all kind of like older gentlemen, so I just think we don't want to. It's not like social media. We don't want to hang out there. We don't be promoting too hard.
Right.
Like
you're not on TikTok, or are you on TikTok? I don't know.
No. But I think the idea is that we'd have these kind of like VJ type people. So there was Tarzan, who and this kind of 80s hair metal character to kind of like announce shows or merch or do kind of promo videos and stuff for us.
Was MTV a big thing for you growing up? Was that, because I don't know, in terms of growing up musically, I don't know if there was a moment that you said to yourself, I'm just going into music and fuck everything else. This is where I need to be. Was there a pivotal moment in your life?
I think it was definitely part of, culture at that time, at a formative time. So it's definitely in there. So all the refs and stuff. And it was just, it was artfully done, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the promotion vehicles now don't have
creativity,
1/20th the kind of creative mojo that MTV, just logo ads had.
Bring back Matt Pinfield.
Yeah, he was great.
When you're writing songs, do you sometimes have to stop and say, this song feels like it's for the Voidz, or this is for the Strokes, or you just write and then it ends up where it's going to end up, or do you consciously think this is for this certain band?
I think Strokes stuff it's become its thing, kind of, It's not, I think Voidz is what I was, secretly dreaming the Strokes would become one day, but it didn't. So it's now its own thing that's like Strokesy, I guess. So if something sounds like that, I guess it kind of goes there. But I think most of the new stuff that I'm developing goes towards Voidz.
Just rewinding a moment. You did, I think, 4 nights last year in October.
Yeah.
And it was themed, right? You had like an arcade there, and the whole thing was around Halloween, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Is there plans? Because I know you have like 2 LA shows and 1 New York show. Are there plans to do something like that again, the way you curated it?
Not really. No, that was more just because it was a Halloween show.
Okay.
So we wanted to kind of make it like a
thing.
80s Halloween movie party. But yeah, and then it just kind of carried over because I think there was the Day of the Dead was like
Happening
3
around
days
there.
after. So we kind of did a Day of the Dead Halloween theme. I think it was it 3 days? Anyway. But no, I don't. It was fun, but no. Not
Do you
this
feel
time.
at this point this is sort of your most creative outlet you've had in a while? Like you really feel fulfilled musically doing this?
I don't think you ever get quite fulfilled. I mean, I'm still trying to get to that place that really hits on all cylinders. I don't think I've had moments that are fun and I'm fond of, but I think really just hitting on every cylinder has maybe, I still thirst for that moment. So it keeps me hungry, I suppose.
Yeah, I want to talk about it a little bit because when we were talking for a moment about like when I started back in the day, that I knew your dad, but fashion played such a big role. And I know that you do, like you work with my friend Mark has a brand.
Seekings, yeah.
Seekings, right.
His last name.
Obviously there's a bunch of covers you've done. My friend Marvin Jarrett, you did his magazine cover recently. How important, like early on, did you think, was fashion a big thing for you? Did you know how important the look of the band early on was going to become and like inspire a whole generation for you?
In a vacuum, fashion is kind of not important to me personally, but
early on, it had such a big part of, I feel like the band looked a certain way that you create a music kind of based on the look in a sense.
well,
right?
that's the thing is I think I didn't really care so much about, clothing or whatever. But then when you get into music, and I'm talking, whatever, 16, 17, 18, those years for me is kind of when you and onward, you realize that it's part of the kind of illusion
Definitely.
making, and it affects how you even just listen to music. So, we'd go see shows, and you look at the shoes and the belt that the guy is wearing, and so everything becomes kind of an important part of the presentation, even though it's not. You wish it wasn't important, you wish people could just judge you on your personality or whatever, if you're good-hearted, all these things that we kind of want to exude. Unfortunately, you can convince people a lot easier if the superficial element is in line with what you're trying to get people to think. So yeah, it's important, I guess, to kind of inspire, get through to people, move people, get people to like what you're doing. So it is important, I guess, on some level, but on another level, it's maybe not that important.
Who were I know you're a huge Bowie fan, as am I, but what were the artists that you were kind of listening to early on that kind of had that full package? Bowie, obviously, every couple of years he changed his image and was such an important part of who he was.
Yeah.
But who were those early artists that in your formative years, like 17, 18, 19, that you were like, this is why I'm doing music? Because you even like Wham, right? You like all kinds of stuff. But that's a guilty pleasure, I would assume, right?
I mean, I think I came back around to Wham later
right.
when I
wouldn't expect
comfortable
it. I
with
wouldn't expect it, but yeah.
I mean, it was just kind of there,
Yeah.
I think, in my like earliest memories. I didn't really listen to it until like, I think like now I can maybe hear some Wham songs and enjoy them, and kind of respect the production and all that. But I think at the time I wasn't really into it when I was a little kid. But
I never got the Smiths until later in life. So yeah, I mean, early on I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I'm still not fully in
I'm
that
bored with
pond.
that.
But yeah, no, I think I mean, for me it was like Velvet Underground, like Lou Reed and Bob Marley, and to a lesser degree maybe like the Doors, and even like Tom Petty and the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, Stevie Wonder. So that was kind of I guess, names that are that I delved into, but I think what I looked at was so eclectic, and you get affected by movies,
Yeah.
you get affected by books, you get affected by people you meet, the things that kind of, it's so formative. Nature versus nurture is just such I think it's so much more nurture in a way. I mean, definitely like nature has its place, but it's not that like if you do this, this will happen, or if you don't have this, this will happen. It's just that it's 1,000 subtle things that happen that, I don't think, like, would Messi be a good soccer player if he was Amish? I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, I would put my money on no, but
there wasn't
I have
one,
a gambling problem. So,
was there one artist in particular that you said early on, like, this is who I want to become? Like, it could have been Bowie. I don't know who that might have been for you. Because later on, you got into world music. We were chatting about a lot of the references on this record. But do you remember if there was that one artist early on that you were just like, this is really what I want to do with my life?
I mean, Reed and Bob Marley were probably the people that I thought were, that I wanted to be like a composer or whatever, when I was younger. So I think their breadth, that's a weird word to say, in a quiet podcast.
It's not that quiet. We're laughing.
I know. Well, I just feel like I need to enunciate the quality, the kind of amount of songs and the standard of quality of those two guys, musically and lyrically, I think is pretty powerful, unmatched. I mean, the influence is pretty outrageous.
Was there ever a time where you thought you would go into fashion because obviously your family was heavy into it, or was it always music? I mean, you just were kind of passing some time early on.
Not really. I think when I was at a young age, I don't know if it was teen angst or different like issues, but I think I just thought I'm gonna kind of, it's not my world, and I'm gonna just be separate from that. But yeah, I think even acting, because I was in a play at school and stuff, there was just these worlds that, as much as they're appealing to people because of, whatever, the parties or the lifestyle, or I don't know, however you want to put it, there was something like people in fashion and movies, even like actors like Marlon Brando, like one of the best actors,
Definitely,
just could not, like, they just never, there was something empty about it, or that there was something unfulfilled about them. And not that I agree. I would probably, personally, on a selfish level, if I was a successful actor, be like, this is better than being a successful musician. But I think there was something in that pushed me away from those dreams. And they were, I'm talking wild fantasy dreams. Not that these were like options, but yeah, I think music just appealed to me because it was much more connected to like philosophical things and even political things, in terms of the goal of art is this kind of almost political thing. You want to affect people's minds with the truth to expand the possibilities and give people the idea of what a tomorrow world can be, so that they can go towards something that hasn't been imagined yet. And I think somehow maybe making movies does that, but yeah, in some ways, like singer or lyric writers and musicians have a path to that in a spiritual way, to me.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people don't know lyrically you've always had this strong passion about politics. And I think in a way, also people don't know, if you listen to a song like New York City Cops, I think now people know because you've done, a few interviews about it, but you've always had this interest, right? It's always been a passion of yours.
Yeah, I mean, yes, not interested in. I don't really pay attention to any kind of mainstream news, corporate media, mainstream news source, or bribed politicians, which are all of them basically.
Yeah, we know the world's on fire. That much we know.
I mean, I just don't. I'm just not interested. It's just the solution will be outside or around that, which everyone is kind of hypnotized by and likes to talk about and can't unglue themselves from. When you program the news sites in your phone, I always find that to be such a crazy moment.
The worst.
That people just kind of take for granted. And
if I look at my news feed, I think the world is coming to an end every day. So I try not to look at it. It's really daunting, I have to say. I mean, I get like nuclear warning every other minute. I'm like, is there a nuclear bomb going off? It's like, it's not great. So I tend to like not look at it so much.
Yeah, I don't. They want to kind of keep you
scared.
Keep you scared and keep you kind of on one side of the two-side team thing. It's just stupid and transparent to the point where I'm just not interested. And I'm not interested in really talking about it because it's hard to even, convince people because the propaganda is so strong and so deep. People, like if you're trying to talk to friends about like why they shouldn't read the New York Times, they're just like completely kind of
never ends
not
well.
understand. They're just they think, oh, it's fine, I can still read it and take the good and take the best. Just okay.
I agree with you.
And then every single political conversation I have is already steeped in that kind of like they've already done their damage.
Right.
And anyway, so I think it's more the philosophical interests of how people can kind of get to a point where, because I think the main kind of confusion shift that happened is that I think people, in the 1700s especially, loved talking about the idea of democracy and this kind of new thing. And I think it was exciting and, with all the kings doing all their evil stuff back in the day. But I think the people in charge were so good at kind of co-opting that message and kind of speaking in that language, but we'd actually never have had it. We haven't tried it. I still think it's a good thing to try, and we just never had it. So we're kind of in this alternate universe where it's a thing that we kind of don't even know how to talk about because the word doesn't make sense anymore, and people are always looking to like something else. But
I always say, and I heard you talk a little bit about aliens, and maybe it was for the promo of this record, but it's so funny, this news cycle, because everything's sensationalized. And there was something a year or two ago about like they discovered aliens. And they're like, all right, the next story. It's like, wait a minute, years ago that would have been a huge thing. But I think because everything's so quick and everything's like the next thing and everything's consumed in these 15-second intervals that nobody made a big deal of it. It's like, wait a minute, they're aliens? Maybe we should stop and talk about this for a moment. Do you believe that there could be life form beyond Earth?
I don't think there's any evidence. I think they said they looked through everything and there's
nothing.
I just think it was again like a news cycle distraction thing. I like talking. I really like the book Childhood's End because there's a moment where the whole story of the book is how aliens come, but they don't. Instead of taking over, they actually
integrate.
They help us figure everything out and they kind of fix everything. Except there's one catch, we don't know what they look like, and so there's all these conspiracies, and then they make a deal that they'll show what they look like in 50 years. Anyway.
I got to read that book. It sounds fascinating.
It's really fun, yeah. Arthur C. Clarke, the guy who did like 2001. A futurist more than just a sci-fi writer, I think. You'll kind of understand why. It's just really smartly predictive. Anywho, there's this moment where they just kind of arrive and their logic is so kind of next level and powerful that it almost fixes most things like right off the bat. So I was kind of infatuated with that idea, and I like using that as a kind of tool of like, omni-truth.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a joke, And
Sounds like it'd make it a great movie.
I don't
if it
think
isn't already. Probably
I don't
is.
think they've ever made a good movie of Childhood's End, but no, I think yeah, Aliens. I'm in the minority where I don't really believe. I mean, the amount of things that have to kind of go right on a planet, the magnetic field it has to have protecting it with the. I mean, there's a long list of things that you need, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't believe personally.
Well, bringing it back to music for a moment, obviously Instant Crush, amazing song that you did with Daft Punk. Do you see any more collaborations coming up? Are there other artists that you'd love to collaborate with? And tell me how that song came about.
The guy who did our art for some Stroke stuff, and then he did all the artwork and videos for my solo thing. Warren Fu, he was working with Daft Punk, and he put us together.
I mean, do you remember writing? The first tracks that you got? Is that what ultimately became that song, or was it at a different shape initially?
They played me 2 songs. They played me what ended up being the verse of Instant Crush, and then they showed me the chorus, and they were kind of like showing them as 2 separate songs, like if I liked one or preferred one. And so yeah, I thought they would work together, and I like to do that a lot. I think that's a songwriting thing I have always done. Even on the first Strokes record, I think I'd be writing a song, and I'd be writing one part that had a vibe, and then another part that maybe had a totally different vibe, and I would just kind of
put them together.
Yeah. So yeah.
Are there other artists like that you'd love to collaborate with that you haven't yet?
I mean, I wanted to get them to get Stevie Wonder to sing the new thing, the demo thing, the infinity repeating.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
That was the idea when I was doing it, but because I knew they had been talking to him and working with him. I don't have access, or I don't think he'd necessarily be interested in doing something with me, but I was using them to get to Stevie.
Right. That would have been a great collaboration.
So yeah.
So you and Stevie could be a great collab if it was to happen.
It was for that song. I don't know. I mean,
we'll put it out there. Talk me
he's
a little
got
bit
better
about
things to do. I'm sure.
Talk me a little bit about Cult Records, and are you doing the A&R for the label yourself? Are you the one that's kind of picking all the artists that you sign? Is there a team?
Not really doing that so much anymore. I mean, just really one-off things, our own thing, and Promised Land, because we are brothers now.
Karen O was on the label too.
Yeah, that was all like a while ago.
Yeah,
there was like a staff and a thing and a distribution deals and stuff, but now it's kind of it's just like an entity that exists when needed, but it's not. I think I have the energy to do a lot of creative things for 2 bands, but working with other artists is kind of the worst.
Well, it's so hard to make money now between the streaming and the touring if you're an indie band, right? So if you were to sign one of those bands,
it's impossible,
right? Do you feel like when you were coming up, it was a lot easier? I mean, people were more accepting. The landscape has changed so much.
Yeah, sure. That was straight up the dream. That was the actual ambition. We had bands like Guided by Voices and Built to Spill, Modest Mouse at the time. Just that was like what indie music was, I guess, in the late 90s or, in that general area. And I think we would see them play and we thought, oh man, if we could get to that point where we can just kind of tour and that could be our job, that was the dream. And now realizing, trying to budget a tour and stuff, it's just that's impossible. You can't make a living that way. You have to either be, a one-man person or like a DJ or something kind of easy to travel or, super successful. Those in-between live bands is, it's not lucrative, or there's no way to even visualize how that could even succeed nowadays, I feel.
Do you still get excited when you hear new music? I know that I saw some clip of you at Amoeba and you guys were talking about, and you said you don't really shop at record stores, but people give you music a lot. Do you get excited by new music still? Are there artists that you're really excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's always great. I just think they're extra underground nowadays, but there's still a lot of great artists doing stuff. The new Beak record was great. I saw you had it written down there.
Yeah. I was going to ask you your top 5 new artists. They don't have to be in any particular order, but I guess Beak would be on that list, right?
I suppose. I mean, new artist. What is the
criteria?
What is the starting point for new?
Just within the last couple of years, like new artists that you discovered. I mean, it could be African music you're listening to. It could be indie rock. It could be anything.
I mean, Crack Cloud, I really love, and we're playing with them, which is exciting. I'm not just promoting our show. I'm honored that we get to play with them. Fat White Family, they had a lot of great songs. I guess they're still around.
Yep.
Maybe not in the same exact lineup or something. I'm not sure, but so that's 3.
I was going to say Blood Orange, but they're not that new at this point. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's cool, like Wise Blood, and there's a girl. Her new thing is called Oxus. She might actually open for us in Brooklyn, I think. She's had different, I think, artist names, but how
do you discover new music? Do you go down the YouTube rabbit hole where you're like, like me, like you go on and then 20 minutes later you're finding another artist, or do people send you music?
Both, but I actually think the main way is I listen to FM radio below 92. That is my main rule in life. I don't have many rules.
That's like 88.9. I mean, if you go above 92, it's going to suck.
It's commercial radio.
Yeah.
It's usually, there's one exception, the Venice low power station, 99.1.
I liked K-Rock growing up, but I know that's 106, so that doesn't, it was commercial, obviously, but
Too high.
Right. You got to go lower.
Can't go below 92, I'm sorry.
And not AM radio. I mean, if you want to go really indie, I guess you could have gone AM radio.
There are AM stations that are cool, but that's just like maybe one level of too complicated, pain in the ass to go. But
I love that rule.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, there's so many great curators of, collect cool old genres. I constantly discover not only new music, but new genres.
Yeah. I was thinking tonight, like, do I want to be the next Rodney Bingenheimer? But I'm like, I don't know if that's really a great reference for this generation. But he was great at discovering new bands early on. Rodney Bingenheimer, he was the mayor of the Sunset Strip. He found so many great bands in the 60s and 70s. But there's a great documentary on him if you ever have 3 hours to kill and just watch a weird documentary.
I don't, but what is it called?
It's called The Mayor of the Sunset Strip, I believe.
Okay.
And it's just, he was this jockey from the 70s that discovered and broke a lot of artists early on.
Awesome.
And you still see him hanging around, he'll be at a Rite Aid on the Sunset Strip, and he's this guy with a Beatles haircut, and he just must be 80 years old, but he's amazing.
Awesome.
It's a great doc. Let's talk about your top 5 favorite films, because I know you're a huge film buff.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a big influence on you musically too. You work with great Roman Coppola and some great directors over the years too.
Yeah.
We could start with number 5 if you want.
I mean, the thing is movies, it's kind of like music too. It depends on your mood.
Yeah.
And there's so many kinds. I'm going to say Ninja Scroll, which is hard to find.
Haven't seen that.
It's probably my favorite. It's really the only anime movie that I love. There's a lot of cool anime stuff, but that one's just a great movie, anime or not. Got to throw Malcolm X in there.
Yeah. Great film. We're on number 3.
I know it's kind of maybe cheesy, but I do kind of come back to it, and it's just so well done, and the music is so cool. Last of the Mohicans. I know it's a silly...
That's another epic movie.
White savior or whatever. Or I guess he's adopted Native American, but it's just, I don't know. It's just the music. Let's see.
We're on number 2.
Number 2.
You reference one of the films, but I don't want to. You referenced The Godfather at some point, but I don't know if you consider that one of the greatest films.
No,
Too commercial.
Well, it's not too commercial. I think it's good. It's funny because talking about music and the power, I think there's movies that I think people almost underrate music in a way. I mean, obviously people who love music scores, there's that I'm not talking about them, but just in general, I think movies like The Godfather or Star Wars, I think if they didn't have like these legendary scores, I wonder how highly rated they would be. I don't know. I mean, there's these there's new movies are there's a lot of cool new movies.
Yeah, it could be a new movie. It doesn't have to be a movie from 50 years ago.
Long Legs was really fun.
Yeah, I didn't see that yet.
Oh man.
Is that with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to see it. I heard it's great.
But I don't
so
know.
We'll put that on the list.
Well, I mean, I'll say My Own Private Idaho, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of to give that genre of movie, like the Adventures of Sebastian Coles of the world.
Another great film.
Yeah. From indie to anything. Comedy.
Awesome. Well, you're a New Yorker, but you live in LA now, and I always equate you with New York.
No, I just came back from LA. I don't live in LA.
Oh, you don't? You live in New York now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Awesome.
Upstate sometimes, but...
Well, let's talk about your top 5 essential New York City spots. I mean, like I said, I keep running into you everywhere, but now that we know each other, we'll definitely say hello to each other. But do you have like a top spots, according to Julian, that you really love to go to? We don't want to give them away. I mean, we know, I go to Lucian. I know that you've been there too, but you have your own list. So.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to list any of them.
Or just, they could be top 5 spots that you really
stay
like.
away from these 5
spots.
No, I'm kidding.
Right? You may not be there all the time, so
I mean, no, I don't. Cool, like to eat or to
it could be. Let's say to eat.
Eat.
Top 5 hidden spots.
I mean, you mentioned Sushi Seki.
Yeah, my favorite in the whole world.
That's probably the best sushi.
100%.
Yeah. They used to be open till like 2, 3 in the morning, and that's sad that doesn't happen anymore.
You remember that maitre d' who worked there? He also looked like he was in the Beatles. He was this incredible character. You remember him? I forget his name, but
I don't.
He looked amazing.
Oh. Let's see.
There could be spots that you just, for all I know, it could be Met Stadium. I don't know, just
City Field.
City Field.
I don't know if that's. I mean, yeah. I mean, they have a Shake Shack, I guess.
Yeah.
So that that's a bonus if you're not a baseball fan. I don't know. Good places.
They could be restaurants. They could be just spots you love to eat at, like New York spots that are definitely some of your favorite spots.
I literally don't want to say any of them.
You can say the ones that no one should go to, but
because every time I think of a place, I'm like,
do I want to tell that to anyone?
Yeah, I would never want to share these secrets. I'll say Treasure Club because
Never been there.
It's a friend's bar, so help it. Yeah, it's like the new Black and White, I guess.
Awesome.
Same owner.
Yeah. Well, you have a fantastic new record. Like I said, like All Before You, comes out September 20th. So around the time this podcast drops, a couple shows in New York and LA. I think there's another show that was just added to New York, right? So there's 2 shows now in New York and one show in LA.
Knockdown Center, yeah.
Dude, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so thankful that you came in. I know you don't do a lot of these, so Thanks. I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
but we do have 50 friends in common, so it's always like a good thing.
Well, finally, we've completed the circle.
We have. So I appreciate you coming in. Let's do this again sometime. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks
again, Julian.